So diesel heaters are a great option. They're becoming increasingly popular for van life or even RV life nowadays, certainly the custom builds. I think the reason they're so popular now is because the advent of the Chinese diesel heaters. We call them the cheap Chinese diesel heaters. This heater sitting in front of me was about $100. It's an 8 kilowatt heater. It was gross overkill in the cargo van, even with a big old monster high top we had on it for a while. We hardly ever ran one on low. I think it's pretty good sized in here. You got a diesel tank here mounted outside, and then it goes down to the floor and back up. And our heater is normally mounted in our, what we call our garage, this little foot plus extension on the back that gives us some shelves, and the diesel heater is mounted on the floor. Then we have it ducted around into the main part of the truck in there, the camper. It's been acting up on us. It'll run, but when you turn it on, it'll smoke like crazy for a couple minutes. There's a few different things that can cause that problem, and I figured since we'd had to run it on low for an entire year in the van, that probably the combustion chamber was all carboned up. So I pulled it out today. We got a nice day. It's been really cold and wet here in Wyoming. It's the 1st of November as I'm recording this. Can't believe that. I don't know where the year has gone. But other than to tell you, I'm going to do a video about it. So would we build a box truck again? That was a huge project. So we'll be talking about it in another video. But for today, we're trying to fix our heater. So I disassembled it all. I did not start filming when I was disassembling for the sole reason that this is the first time I've taken one of these apart. So I had no idea what I was doing, but I got it apart very easily, actually. The worst of it was pulling it out from where it's installed, because you got to bring the hoses out with it because they're mounted so close on the bottom here. Oops, wrong one. There we go. They mount on the bottom. This one mounts on here, the exhaust. And anyway, actually I think that's backwards, but it doesn't matter. They mount on there. Yeah, there we go. There's the exhaust. So anyway, you can't, if you just lift it up an inch or two, you can't get in there to do stuff. So I had to disconnect them down below where the exhaust goes into the muffler, or the silencer as they call it. I had to disconnect the air intake from the little filter. That's not a great filter, but it's done its job so far. It keeps critters and stuff from getting up into the intake anyways. So I had to disconnect them down here and pull the whole thing out through the floor. So then basically that's your connections. You've got an exhaust connection, a fresh air intake connection, a fuel line, which is under here somewhere. There we go. A fuel line that's crimped off so it doesn't leak. The fuel line goes, again, we don't have all the parts here, so I'll show you the details of that in just a moment. And there's an electrical connection, and that's all you got to do, a quick connect to, it sits in. It's got a few screws that I'll try and show you putting it back in, but it's got a few screws that hold it to the floor, and that's pretty much it. So the big thing with installing these, you got to cut holes in your floor, and you got to figure out where to mount your tank and how to run fuel and all that stuff. So I took this all the way apart anyways, because I figured the most likely scenario was this problem. We did initially have year-old diesel, so we got new diesel in, and then I checked the fuel lines, made sure that looked okay. It could be like a bad fuel pump. It could be a problem with a fuel line. It could have been a restricted air, which I actually did have. My line was crunched because this big toolbox we've got on the back had slid a little bit while we were driving. It was strapped on, but it had shifted and pinched this, so the restricted airflow could make it smoke like that. So that wasn't the problem. The fuel wasn't the problem. So I thought this was the most likely scenario. So I took it apart to clean it. And if you're going to have one of these things, you're going to have to do this occasionally. That's the unfortunate reality. You might get longer out of a good quality German one. They cost 10 times or more as much, but they might last a little longer between service. But basically there's not a whole lot to it. This is like the body of it here, the bulk of it. And what I'll show you is how to reassemble it now that we've cleaned it. Now that I have some idea how things work. And of course, disassembly is exactly the reverse of assembly. So if anything, maybe the assembly is slightly trickier. I don't know. You got a gasket that goes in here. And I think I may have shown you some B-roll already, but there's the combustion chamber. That's where the burn occurs. And this is actually in pretty good shape considering it's been in use for a year now. Right about exactly a year. I think it was October last year we set it up in the van. So it's been in use for a year. It's been used a lot and run a lot on lower settings. So we're going to put it back together and we're going to see if it works, if it stops smoking. If that doesn't do it, we may have to replace the fuel pump because they're kind of famous for going bad. And I do have another pump. We actually have another heater that we picked up at a garage sale, brand new, never used, open box this summer. So it was like 50 bucks and it gave us a complete heater plus a bunch of parts like the fuel pump that we might end up replacing here at some point too. So there's also a chance, before I get to the fuel pump, there's a chance the fuel filter could be giving me problems. It's a super cheap plastic filter, so we may have to look at upgrading that too. But we'll work through it. I just thought this was going to be the most likely scenario, and we had an uncharacteristically warm day for the 1st of November, so I figured if I'm going to do it, now's the time to tear it apart. If I can't figure it out, we can put the whole new one in and just replace it. But there's not a lot to these things, so I think we should be able to get it solved. So we've got the main body here with a burn chamber, and then we have a gasket. Now these can fail. You can order replacements on Amazon. I have heard horror stories about people having a hard time getting the exact right parts, because even though those things are mostly the same, sometimes there are minor differences between them. So just a word of warning there. This only goes in one way and it fits. Let's see if I get it in the right way. I just told you I'm now putting it in wrong or something. Let's see, how does this go? I had it in here a minute ago and I took it out there we go, to demonstrate. So you got to have room for the glow plug, which comes through here. So I'll show you that in a minute. There are 4 screw holes, which we're not going to put in yet. We need to put some other parts back in. So this is the next part to go in, and this is the fuel supply, and the rubber hose there, the fuel hose, just goes right on here and is put on with a hose clamp. And if you're getting one of these, you probably want to upgrade your fuel line. I'm going to upgrade mine very shortly, if not today. And you definitely want to upgrade all the clamps because they're terrible. I can't speak for the German ones. The Chinese ones are terrible clamps, and they're likely to fail you on you and you have a big mess. And one of the reasons we went out of our way with this build to mount this thing outside, and I do wish this box, it fit a little more perfectly, it didn't stick over, but we mounted it outside. It's easy to fill. I can pull right up to a diesel pump and fill it up, and we have some cans. I can refill it here easily. And when we spill a little, which inevitably happens with diesel, no matter how careful you try to be, it's outside and I can just wipe it up out here, but it's not stinking up our home, our camper. So that's why we did that. But that's where the fuel line goes onto here. And again, the way these things work, the fuel line, when this is positioned, the fuel line and the exhaust and the intake all go out the bottom here. So if there is a leak on this end, it drips outside of the truck as well. So now, see if we can figure out how to put this thing back in. I think, let's see here. Oh, okay, the glow plug thing goes down there. This goes through right here. Okay, this is where the glow plug blows in. Where it glows in. This is where the glow plug attaches. This is the glow plug right here. And hopefully, yeah, the idea of the glow plug with diesel, it's harder to get lit than gasoline. So you have this thing which has an electric current applied to it, makes it warm, actually quite hot, and that allows the diesel to ignite and get your thing going. So these can fail, and that'll also cause you to have problems. Maybe your thing won't even start. This looks like it's in pretty good shape. I don't really see a lot of wear on that, so I think we're probably okay with this. That could be something that's a problem though, because they can fail even if they don't look horrible. So but this is going to go through here anyways once we get it all installed. So get this rubber thing out of the way. This little rubber thing here seals up, there we go, this spot. So, and apparently I gotta do it all at once. There we go. All right, like that. And now this is just sitting in here on top of that gasket, ready for me to put some screws in. Let me pause real quickly to show you what tools you're going to need if you want to disassemble one of these. I used a crescent wrench. I could have used a regular wrench too, but that's to remove the plate that mounts on the bottom here that allows you to You'll see it all in a minute, that allows you to screw it to the floor in your rig. And then it was just held on with 4 nuts. So I use the crescent wrench to remove those. You could use pliers, you could use a socket, you could use a regular wrench, whatever you want to do. I just happen to have this sitting handy, so I grabbed it to do that. So some kind of wrench, a Phillips screwdriver, maybe a nut driver if you want to do it that way with some of the hose clamps. You're going to need a metric Allen wrench. I don't know what size this is. Can I read it? Oh, it looks like maybe 8. Don't quote me on that. No, that is wrong. 3. Looks like, nope, 4. I'm not doing good here. Okay, they're not, the numbers don't line up really good, so I think it's a 4mm. But in any event, you can pick one of these wrenches up for 10 bucks or less at Home Depot or any hardware store. I don't recommend getting super cheap ones because they're likely to strip on you and make a mess, and then you have a problem. But there's 2 sets of Allen head screws on this device, and these should be all pretty similar. There may be slight differences between them. This one is a Vevor 8 kilowatt, but there may be slight differences, but they're all pretty similar. The shorter ones are for this inside piece. So I've got 4 of them set aside. We'll go ahead and reinstall these. And if you're enjoying this video and any of the other videos, give a huge shout out to the lovely Melanie in the comments, because she's running the camera today. Otherwise, you'd be sitting on a tripod with no movement going on. So if you like the extra effects, make sure you give a shout out to the camera woman. She's more than a camera woman, but you know, just saying. So I'm just getting these started by finger tight, and then I'll use the Allen wrench on them. And I like to get things started finger tight just by hand, so that I know that they're not cross-threading. And I'm going to booger something up when I put a wrench on it, because this is an aluminum body. It'll get messed up easily. So, but like I say, the disassembly of this thing was actually easier than getting it out of pulling it out of the truck, which I thought it would be the other way around. So I was a little bit, I don't know if I say apprehensive, but I was a little bit dreading it, thinking it might be a big project trying to disassemble this and everything would be hard, and it came apart pretty easy. So that if you've got the most basic mechanical skills and some very basic tools, as I showed you there, I forgot a couple for you. Most basic tools, you could definitely do this project. It's a little bit of a tight squeeze, so if your fingers are smaller than mine, that might be actually helpful. But I forgot to go over finish the tool thing though. All right, a wrench of some sort, a screwdriver. This is a Phillips head. That's what I've got on mine. You might have something different with your hose clamps, but metric Allen wrenches. I used a 12mm wrench to remove the glow plug, which you'll see going back in just a minute. And then you've probably already seen it, but I used just a wire brush to clean up the carbon and stuff on the inside there. So, all right, I'm gonna tighten these down a little bit so we can move on to the next step of this process. And now that I have some idea what I'm doing, if I have to disassemble this thing again, I'll be sure to film the disassembly so you can see that part of it. Otherwise, I guess you can watch this video backwards. I don't know. For me, it's a little more stressful getting it put back together anyways than taking it apart. I mean, you know, if you got some pretty basic mechanical skills, you can take it apart. That's whether you get it back together in such a way that it works, that's kind of the question, right? A lot of people that do use diesel heaters, especially if they do a DIY install, which is a lot of people, honestly, because if you're paying somebody to install, you probably just want to go buy a good high quality one to start with. But if you're doing it, a lot of the people are doing cheap Chinese ones are buying them. They're doing their own install. A lot of people will just carry a complete separate system, and the idea there, of course, is that you know you got the parts you need to swap it out. And Murphy's Law type stuff, right? If your heater's going to die, it's going to be in the worst possible weather conditions. So having that ability to just quickly swap out a heater, and it's maybe a 15 or 20 minute project instead of, you know, having to do a full disassembly and attempt to repair things, maybe find parts, that sort of stuff. And I should have mentioned, when I put that gasket back in under here, if you're going to reuse it, make sure you inspect it and it's in good condition. It's not cracked or damaged or anything. This one was in good shape. It's only a year old and it's the first disassembly. So I think it's time to put the glow plug back in. We got to put that in before we put the next part on, because we won't be able to get to it anymore. You can get a special socket that has a notch in it, a slice in it, so that goes over the wires and you can get onto it and turn it. And this one's 12 millimeter. I think that's a pretty standard deal. But if you do that, you can, you know, reach in from the end. I'm going to have to go in with a wrench because I don't have one of them. If I did these all the time, I'd probably have one, but I don't. So anyway, you can see the hole there. This is where my finger is. This is where we're aiming for. And we got to get the glow plug in there so we can heat up things when it's ready to cook. So now we'll get this again finger started, so we make sure it wants to thread in there before we start cranking on it with a wrench. This does not have, from the factory, did not have any kind of like pipe tape or anything on it, so hopefully that's okay the way it is. And one thing I learned taking this apart, kind of the hard way, that I'll share, it might save you some grief. When you go to remove the glow plug, I recommend removing the glow plug before you loosen up all these Allen head bolts, that are hex head bolts here. They'll hold it down, because if you wait till I did, you take these out first and then you go to remove the glow plug, this whole assembly is rocking and it's really tight clearances trying to get in here to loosen this thing up. And if it's rocking, you won't be able to do it. So I had to hold this down by hand while I loosened it up. But now we're going to tighten it up. I got it in there pretty good, so you want to make sure this is tight or you'll have problems. So there we go. And so the 12 millimeter wrench does work just fine in here. It's a little bit tight, but it works. So that's an option if you don't want to go buy a special tool and you're not planning on doing a bunch of repairs on these. This unit here, this blower, is two blowers that spin together. Okay. And you see there's another gasket on here too. This one pulls air in from right here, from the air intake for combustion air. This outer one is the one that blows heated air from around the perimeter of this thing out into your house. So this is a sealed system. I know there's a lot of confusion about this, but it basically works the same way as a gas or oil furnace in your house. And you have a combustion chamber that's sealed, and it needs to be sealed. If it's not sealed, you're getting hydrocarbons emitted into your dwelling space, your living space. Heats it, and then you have heat exchangers that air is pulled across or pushed across, and that's what goes out into your house that's the warm air that comes out in your house. And I'll tell you, this thing puts out warm air. It's not even in the same league as the heat pump we have with our air conditioner in there. This thing is serious power, and so far it's done a nice job for us of keeping us warm when we needed it to. So this thing just drops in here like so, and make sure you line up all the holes, make sure that gasket's on there good. And these are the longer screws with the hex or Allen head on them, and we're going to put all four of these in to attach these parts together. I'm hoping this thing's going to work right when I get done with it, but it could be a fuel filter or a fuel pump issue too, so we'll see. But this is the process anyways for disassembling this thing and reassembling it. And like I say, if you're going to have one of these, this is just something you're going to have to deal with. Doesn't mean you have to do it yourself. You can maybe get somebody to help you with it, but this is definitely something you're going to have to deal with, because even the good ones will do this. They just might not do it quite as often as the cheap Chinese ones. I think they have, you got better quality control usually, and it's basically the same thing, but better quality control and maybe some better programming on the little computer that runs the thing to manage everything. That's why one of the reasons your newer vehicles can go much longer between tune-ups than old vehicles. If you're like me, you remember every Saturday you're working on the car in the driveway, you know, and at least once a year you're doing a tune-up on it. Well, you don't have to do that so often anymore. So we'll get these snugged down now. There may or may not be an official torque setting for these. I don't know what it is, if there is. You want them tight enough that there's no air leaks and they're not coming loose, but you don't want them so tight that you break a bolt or crack the aluminum case, which is probably the more likely scenario with a cheap cast aluminum here. So, and even though we don't have anything other than a cook stove that should cause problems, I always have a carbon monoxide alarm and a smoke alarm in any vehicle that I'm using any kind of fossil fuels in, for safety reasons. You don't get any do-overs on that. So, all right, let's see if we can get this plugged. This is the glow plug thing here. See if we can get this plugged back in. There we go. Get that all sealed up now. So we're getting there. We're getting there. We got to put the electronics back on now. And this was already removed, of course, but pretty simple here. Let's see. Which way did this goes on this side? Okay. All right, this little box, you got to connect 3 wires to the back of it. Hopefully they only go one way. But anyways, the red one goes onto the red here. And pretty standard quick disconnect. You just hit the tab and you can release it. This one goes on here, and then we have a 4-pin and a 3-pin, so you can see they're not the same, so you cannot get them backwards. At least on this heater, this should be pretty standard between them. So this is a 3-pin over here, so we'll plug that on. And again, it's got just a quick release tab here that you can push on that and release things. So these are not bad when you can get to them. I had fun with a truck replacing a climate control module recently because I couldn't get to the quick releases very good. But anyways, that's an aside, and this one just goes on there as well. So that's all back together now. Let's see if I can get this face in the right direction. Hold on, I'm gonna move these around so I get it facing the right direction better, and I'll be right back with you. All right, there we go. Okay. All right, and then this, except for this thing doesn't like to sit up very good. This one goes on over here. And this little screwy thing here is where this fits into. It's supposed to kind of hold it underneath of it, I think, is the idea. And let's see if I can get these. Anyways, it's got a screw on this side that holds it in place. And that's the one Phillips screw in the inside of this thing. And of course, coming out of this is the plug that you connect to inside the truck, and that's for your power and your wall control module. Not a real thermostat, but a wall control module anyway. So, and then let's see, do I need to put, I think I have to put this back on first. Maybe. No, I don't. Okay. Yeah, or do I? Yeah, I think I do. Okay. Oops. All right, so this thing just takes a little bit of fiddling. There we go. That's better. All right, so that just fits on there. I'm losing parts out the back that used to be glued together but are not anymore. So see if we can, I think these are just like pads help support things a little bit. Whoops. I guess we'll put them back together in a minute because they don't want to stay in place anymore. And a red rubber gasket thing here. This goes, let's see, yep. Got to line it up so the hole for the fuel inlet is there. And then, so it's only going on one way. Alright, so we'll just work this thing back into proper position. And one thing I learned back in my motel maintenance days, if you're taking something apart and you're not real familiar with it, it's a real good strategy to take photographs as you go. Between every step, take photographs, and then it helps a lot if you have any questions when you're putting something back together. I didn't do this, but it is helpful because you can see how things came apart and how they're supposed to go back. All right, I think this thing's next. This is the plate I was telling you about that gets screwed. These things go over the fuel line and the inlet and air outlet, or the exhaust, and then it gets screwed down onto the floor of your vehicle. There we go. You got to get it right so you can clear the air inlet there. This is the one that's held on with 4 nuts that I used that giant wrench to take off. That was way overkill. I really hope this fixes the problem. This is the exhaust too, and you can see it's got some carbon in it, but it's reasonably clean. It's not horrible. It's not all closed off or anything. So basically soot like the exhaust pipe on your vehicle. And yes, I probably could have got some good solvent and cleaned the snot out of this while I was at it, but you know, I don't have any. That would have made an extra trip to the store. And I'm trying to get this done. We have about, on these warmer days this time of year, we get about 4 hours maybe. That's kind of warm, so I'm trying to take advantage of this and get it reinstalled before I, is this a 12? Probably not 12 millimeter, is it? Nope. Let me find a smaller wrench. I'll let you know what size those are. At 10, I should have known. All right. So at least on this heater, they're 10 millimeters if you want to get the right thing and not have to mess with a crescent wrench. Now, this is the other half of the cover, and these just kind of snap together, I guess. I don't see much in the way of, oops, I gotta get this little grommet back in here on this side for the wire. That just slides in there. And then these things, I think they just kind of snap together. There's not much to them. And that on the end kind of holds it all together. So all right. And it's back together. So this goes back. I got to put the end cover on. It's still inside. That has our ductwork attached to it on the end. That's in the truck still. So other than that, we got to reconnect the exhaust and the intake and the fuel line. Bring it inside, drop it through the floor, screw it back down again through these little holes here on this plate, and plug it in, reconnect the duct, and we'll see if it works. Or if I have more tasks to accomplish, like working on the fuel system maybe. And like I said, we got a whole nother spare, so worst case we can just replace it with another one that's brand new that should work. But I thought it'd be worthwhile to take it apart and see if we could fix it, and also just have a better understanding of how these things work inside. And like I say, the disassembly was easier than I expected, so that's a good thing. All right, exhaust back on here. can use a screwdriver or a nut driver or a ratchet. I may actually grab a 1/4-inch ratchet and tighten these things down with that. Make sure they're down good and tight because I don't want exhaust getting into the house. All right, I'm going to run some new fuel line from here to go out and over to the fuel filter underneath. Basically because I have it, and then I won't have to worry if I damage that stuff crimping it off to work on it. So this is as good a time as any to put some new line on, I guess. We'll cut off a length of it. You can get this stuff at any hardware store. It's similar to what they use for like weed whackers and chainsaws and other small engines. It does come in a couple different sizes though, so you got to make sure you get the right size. You can also, and some people do this, get the higher quality like rubber reinforced hoses like you might use on a vehicle, and so you can certainly do that too. I don't mind the clear in that I can see if there's bubbles in the line, or if my line's running empty, or if I'm getting air gaps or anything. So that's kind of I think it's kind of an advantage to doing it that way. This fuel line just goes on this nipple here that comes out the bottom. We saw that when we were working on the thing. And so you gotta get that on there good, and then there we go. And we'll get loosen that up a little bit, I guess. Get the clamp on, so we don't want diesel leaking. Try and do this so it doesn't interfere with the air intake I gotta put back on in a minute. And then I'll grab a ratchet and tighten these down good, but for now at least. All right, then we need the fresh air. All right, so these are 7mm on these particular hose clamps. Oops, that one might be different. Is that one different? There we go. That one might be 6. Nope. Is that standard? Alrighty, and this one is 1/4-inch. Go figure. So yours may be different, but it's probably somewhere in that range. All right, there's those. Now let me, well, we'll see about this other one that I got on the exhaust here. Then we'll go drop this thing through the hole, and we'll have to, yep, that one's gonna be 7 again. We'll have to bleed out the line because there's no, or prime the line, get the air out of it before the thing tries to run. There we go. All right, and this thing is a exhaust sleeve. It's like you can get these for your mufflers in your car or whatever too, but the idea is it is insulated really good, and it shields the plywood or whatever your exhaust pipe is going through from some of the heat. Now I go oversized when I cut a hole anyways to make sure there's plenty of room, but they did include this, so I'm using it. And then it goes into the exhaust silencer, as they call the muffler, down here. So you've got a hose clamp on here to hold this thing in place so it doesn't move around. It kind of is a safety thing, because you don't want to overheat your floor and start a fire on your plywood floor or something. So, all right, so that's it for this. Now we got to put it back in, and we'll see if it works better. And there is a procedure for priming the pump, bleeding the air out of it. I'll have to look it up again. We have the manual, but I'll have to look it up because it's going to be a little different depending on the controller you got. And but it'll definitely fail if I try to just fire it up and it's got a bunch of air in the line. So we'll go drop these through and then reconnect them outside and go from there. You can figure out how to run your exhaust on these the best. I don't want it touching any of our wood framing here, even though it's got that sheathing on it. So we kind of have to come down and then back, and I go underneath here to put the exhaust on and then bring it back out underneath the bumper of the truck. There's, you know, basically you just want to get it out from under your vehicle, and you never, with stuff like this, you never want it exiting directly under a vent or a window or a door, because that'll get sucked back into your vehicle, and that's going to give you a bad day. So we don't want to do that. So I'll crawl under there and reconnect that, but I don't actually care this minute. Right now, I just want to make sure that we have air coming in, and I'll reconnect this one after I prime it and fire it up to test it too. So again, I just want to make sure everything's working before we worry about too much else there. All right, I need my socket again so I can get this thing off. Another hose clamp up under here. Looks like this one's going to be 1/4 inch again. So apparently we got these at 2 different times. Or else the parts store gave us clamps with 2 different, I don't know. Well, this will probably be hard to see, but you know, just trying to loosen this up, and we'll pull this off of here, and hopefully. Let me, I'm about to disconnect that thing, huh? Just disconnect the fuel pump there so I get a little more room to work with. There we go. And we're gonna just replace this hose so we know it's in good shape. Especially where we're having some problems. I want to rule out anything like some swollen hose that's restricting the flow or something. Let's see, here we go. And once I get done with this, I'll put some connectors, ties in to secure this to the framing so it's nice and out of the way. It's not getting caught on anything. I don't think I ever got around to doing that before, even though I should have. But build projects, you know. There's no shortage of projects to do. So, all right. So we'll just plug this back onto the fuel pump outlet here. Get that on all the way so it doesn't want to come loose, and then we'll tighten this down. Shouldn't have to worry about any leaks on it. These things are a little curious, these low-powered clicker fuel pumps. At least with the diesel heaters, they like to be on about a 45-degree angle. So you want it on a 45-degree angle. You also want your fuel tank at or above the level of your diesel heater, because it just comes out the bottom in a gravity feed thing. And if your tank is lower, the pump's going to be working even harder to try and pull it up. And these things are famous for failing anyways. It would be the same thing if you want to put in like a jerry can or something, which I would love to do at some point to replace this one, have like a 5-gallon tank or something. But in order to do that, again, we have to get a better pump that can draw it up and get it to into the heater adequately. So I may have to check this. I may have to pull this thing off and check this too, I guess. See what that looks like. The fuel filter there, I'm wondering if that might be getting cruddy too. So all right, that's back in. I'll see if I can pull this out now, the other end of it. Yeah, another 1/4. Okay. And for some reason I have this on the back of the faced backwards, so wait a minute, am I turning that backwards? Am I tightening that down instead of, yeah, there we go. No wonder it's getting harder as I go. Turning the wrong direction. That's better. I must have bumped it with my finger while I was... Amateur mechanics here, you know. It almost looks like this is kind of cruddy in here, in this fuel line. Like it's kind of black. And so I'm wondering if there's something going on with the fuel line here, because that would explain a lot. We just flushed out the fuel line. It's up to the filter anyways. I did not mean to take that all the way off. I meant to loosen the hose clamp, and then I was going to clamp it before I removed it. Apparently I should have clamped it before I loosened the hose clamp. So let me go find a rag, because... Oh, you're right. Your sister wanted me to keep Red, so she'd still have another puppy in the backyard. Come on. You know you want to come out, because I want to see if you're really black in there like you look like. It's definitely discolored, but it looks like that don't look too bad, but the hose is definitely discolored, which makes me wonder if it's had some crud in it, you know. Diesel is a great way to clean your hands. Not saying I recommend it or anything, but you know, it's close to kerosene, just, you know. So I guess we might have to find a new fuel filter for this thing, 'cause I'm wondering. It's just a cheapy filter anyway. It's got a little O-ring in it. I don't know, the filter itself don't look bad. I don't really see any restrictions there. But this line does look discolored, so the only dirt I see on here is on the outside, which would be expected. So for today, maybe we'll clean it up and just replace that piece of line too. I don't know what that's about, but it's definitely discolored. So, but it looks like it's the tubing that's discolored, not the... I was thinking maybe it had some cruddy, messy diesel in it, like the fuel filter had maybe started coming apart or something. So I guess we'll replace this piece and then go from there. There's a reason I did this when the tank was kind of down though too. That reason would be that I was afraid I'd make a mess. So I thought, just in case I make a mess, I'll make sure the tank isn't full. But we were able to stanch the bleeding. All right, we'll put this thing back together. And it flows, so there it is. Flows this way. I should probably just get a better fuel filter, and I should have a spare fuel filter too, just in case, but this thing could be cleaned up with its wire mesh basket, so. All right. If we can slide this hose clamp on up there, and we'll put this all back together, and hopefully it's going to work. All right, I think that's on there good. I don't want to crush the plastic discharge tube, you know. All right, put that in there. Put this back together. All right, now we'll connect this to this other hose that's disconnected right now because, you know, I had a little mishap when I was working on that. So, but it's clamped, so it won't make too big of a mess. Hopefully. All right, let's see. All right, now we'll connect this thing back up. This one's got a little loose diesel that helped with the sliding it on. Okay, now we can, oops, I need a hose clamp for this one too, don't I? Try and go the right direction. My fingers are getting pretty slick. It's hard to hold on to things. That happens when you're playing with diesel, right? I am right-handed, so this is a wrong angle to be going at this from for me. All right, I guess that's gonna do. Of course, when I get done with this, I'll have to clean up my mess all over the back of the truck here. So far, the best thing I've come across personally for cleaning up diesel spills is like 90% isopropyl alcohol. If you've got some experience with this and have a different suggestion, I'm all ears. Or all eyes, as the case may be, since I'll be reading your comments. But have at it and let us know if there's something you found that works well for cleaning up diesel spills, because if you're going to have a diesel heater, you're going to occasionally have some spills, like right here. So, and this will all, I'm going to, you know, put some little cable clamps on here to secure these things to make sure it's not bouncing around and everything. But for right now, I want to make sure it works. And right now, what we've got is a situation where, we'll take this thing off of here. There's fuel in the tank. You can see I painted it black to match the rest of the truck, but I left a stripe here that didn't turn out perfectly even. But maybe someday Melanie will fix that so it looks better. But you can see we got almost half a tank here, but the line is empty because you know, we drained everything. So I got to reconnect the electric inside, which is just one quick connect, and then I got to grab the booklet and remember how to prime the pump, because there's a sequence you can do that'll make the pump run till it gets diesel up there before it tries to light, and then we'll see if it's going to work any better or if we get a big belch of smoke. And I have not connected the intake or the exhaust yet. The only thing lacking on the intake is the little filter thing, and that just gets tucked up here out of the way, and the exhaust just doesn't have the silencer on it yet. But right now I just want to see if we're going to smoke like crazy and I have other things I got to fix, or if everything's okay, and then I'll reconnect that, because I do not want that exiting under the floor of the box truck, because we'll be smelling it, and I don't want to be smelling it. I don't want that crud getting in there. So, all right, I'll throw my trash away, and then we'll go try and prime the pump, and then we'll try and start it and see what happens. All right, we're trying to get some fuel going through here. The pump's running. It's going to take a minute to suck all the diesel through. You can see there's not much in here yet, but it'll be getting going pretty quick. And hopefully it doesn't smoke like it used to. It's going. It just lit. Took a couple tries to get the air through the line. I'm not seeing any smoke at all coming out. So last few times we fired it up, it was smoke like for a couple, 2-3 minutes, like crazy, a lot of smoke, and then it would quit. It would be fine after that. As long as we kept it running, it was fine. But yeah, we're running now. I'm not seeing any smoke at all coming out of that, even on startup. So that's good. Maybe we got it figured out. So we'll let it run for a minute, then I'll go ahead and reconnect the exhaust and the rest of the air supply. Not the 80s band, but the air intake. Put the filter on it, and we might call that good. And I'll have to find a couple. I might have some. I'll find some clamps to kind of secure things so they're not getting, you know, bounced around too much. And one of the things about putting the fuel pump outside like this, and putting the fuel tank outside, we don't have to worry about any spills. Put the fuel pump outside also, we don't have to worry about the noise. We don't hear anything. It's very, very quiet, particularly with the ductwork carrying the air into the main part of the truck, it's hard to know it's even on, so except for it's hot. So the one thing about this, if you're in like truly way sub-zero weather, you wouldn't want to do it this way because your diesel line is likely to freeze up. That's just I've seen that in Montana, you know, it was minus 30, minus 40 and the wind was blowing, but hopefully we'll be down in the desert when it's that cold up here and we won't have to worry about it. Yeah, I think we might have got it fixed though, Melanie. I don't see any smoke at all coming out of there, and it's rip-roaring. It sounds like a jet engine. Oh, that's getting warm, yeah. And the muffler thing does quiet it down a little bit. All right, well, I guess I'll shut that down and finish hooking it up, because this thing's already getting hot, so I don't want to be holding on to it when it gets any hotter. This thing I just tuck up out of the way. You want to keep it right next, you want to keep it not right next to the exhaust, because you know, you don't want to be sucking that back in, but you do want it, ideally, you see the little holes in it. These things will get plugged up with snow or mud or whatever, potentially even insects. You want to check it once in a while, make sure it's clean, but I also try and position it where it's not, hopefully not going to get a ton of mud when I'm driving in wet conditions. So what I've been doing with this one is tucking it up in here where the ramp used to go. You can't really see it too great because this wooden box is in the way, but there we go. And he just kind of rides up there, and it's pretty well up off the ground, so it doesn't seem to get very dirty, which is good. So I'll give this thing a minute to cool down, and then I'll reattach the exhaust silencer, and hopefully we'll be all set now for tonight when we need some heat. Yep, just got hot. Quick in a hurry. Funny how that works. All right, it's all back together. The exhaust is all reconnected. So it appears to be working fine. So we'll try it out again in a couple hours when it starts cooling down. We'll fire it up and hopefully we're all set now and we've got this problem solved. I don't know, to be honest with you, if it was needed to be taken apart and cleaned, or if we had an issue with a fuel line there that I fixed by redoing things, but it seems like everything's all set. If I have any more trouble with it, I'll probably try replacing the fuel pump, because I do have another spare that came with a whole other system we bought. There are more expensive fuel pumps that are supposed to be better, but they're like half the price of the entire system. So if it comes down to it, maybe we'll have to try that at some point. But for now, everything's back together and it seems to be working. So that's how you reassemble your diesel heater after you take it apart to service it. If it happens again or we have trouble with it again, which I'm sure we will if we run this thing for long enough, I'll try and film actually disassembling it, but hopefully that gives you a good idea how they work, what the parts are, and it's pretty simple to work on. Like I say, on ours, literally the hardest thing was pulling it out of there, which I thought would be the easier part. So it went pretty quick and pretty easy, so nothing crazy about it. Anyway, hope you found this video helpful, entertaining, something like that, useful. We have a whole playlist here of videos on this build itself and on DIY projects on camper vans and RVs. you.